Welcome to Sisterhood Checkin. I am your author and coach, Nadira Lewis, and it is Friday! Woo! I'm excited that you are joining me again here on Friday on YouTube. Hi. On Facebook. Hi. On Instagram. Hello. I wanted to take some time. Let me just make sure that everybody can hear me. If you can hear me, put a 1 in the chat and let me know if you can hear me. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching me on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button so that you can be notified every time we upload or I upload a new video. If you are watching me on Instagram, hey, make sure you put in the comments, tell me, don't be rude, say hello to me. If you're watching me on Instagram, say hello. If you're watching me on Facebook, send me put a like and make sure you click like and share and send me a shout out also on Facebook and let me know that you're watching. And please, by all means, let me know where you're watching from. So thank you guys so much for watching me here. Today is going to be an amazing topic. We're going to be talking about the power of atmosphere. And the reason why I say it's the power of atmosphere and why I chose to say atmosphere, because I'm telling you guys, the power of atmosphere, when you learn how to dominate wherever you are, right? As a matter of fact, you can't really dominate anything around you until you first learn how to dominate what's on the inside of you, how you take control over your thoughts and over your mind. And we're going to get into that today. So I'm going to go ahead and play this quick video. So won't you call up your girlfriends and tell them Sisterhood Check-In is on the air. And I'll be right back after this.
Sometimes it's not enough to be reminded that Jesus hasn't left you or forgotten you. We need to declare it over ourselves, over others. No matter the season you may find yourself in, no matter the depths of darkness you're wading through, you can join him in declaring the truth. That God is light upon your feet, whether or not you can see the next step. That God is your strength, even though the weight of life seems to be crushing you down. And that when your job, your marriage, your relationship, your health feels like it's coming to a dead end, there is only one God that can make dead things live again. These are his promises, and they're the only thing you need to declare over your life. So as you step into this next season or this next moment, you can declare that God's not done with you. He's just getting started. You can declare that the good work that he has started in you, he will surely complete it. You can declare that the same God that parted the seas goes before you, goes behind you. You can declare these promises over your life, over your family's life, over the people passing on the street. You can declare these truths over every circumstance, over every season of your life. You can declare that every day belongs to him and every new breath belongs to him. Because we have the power of a living God living inside of us. And this is our declaration.
All right. And thank you for joining me back here on Sisterhood Check-In. I'm so grateful that for each and every one of you that are joining me on all the platforms, we're going to have such an amazing time tonight. And I pray that as I begin to go through some of the thoughts and things that I want to share with you in regards to this particular topic, my prayer is that you are blessed and that you're able to apply the things that I'm able to share with you, and that you're able to take this information to be able to go and pray about it, ask God to show you how to apply it. But I'm going to try to be as simple and plain as possible. But this is important because one of the things that I realized just in observing, I heard one a person say, one of my newest, I want to say, mentors, said something that was really profound, and she said something about being an observer, and one of the things that I've realized is that that we are all born in this world to solve a particular problem, as Miles Monroe says, to solve a question, or problem that our generation is asking, right? So there's a lot of, thank you, Kalila. Hi, thank you. I see your comment on Instagram. But one of the things I realized is that in being an observer, you're able to look at looking I sometimes go in when I'm on TikTok, I'm listening to different conversations and I'm paying attention to the cries of the women that I'm hearing on a lot of these conversation platforms. And one of the things that I realized, and it seems to be consistent across the board, is people struggling with their mind, right? And you might be thinking, well, yeah, everybody struggles with their mind a little bit, and yes, they do. All of us have the strife, the we all have that struggle where we're always thinking, overthinking. We always have some of us have the struggle of sometimes thinking that people are looking at us a certain way or probably talking about us. And it's always the theys, if you notice, that are in our mind that is causing us to feel like we can't really function at the level that we know that we're capable of functioning because of all the theys in our heads, right? And so one of the things I've realized in listening to some of the conversations and being a mindset coach is looking and listening for problems that I believe that God has given me the ability to answer. Okay. And it's not just about picking out stuff and just saying, oh, I'm going to do this. It's me having an ear to the field, right? Um, Being able to listen and see where my giftings are able to help or assist in these areas. So when I started to really think about it across the board, everybody's dealing with some sort of trauma regarding that. It's affecting the way they see themselves, is affecting the way they see the people around them. It's affecting the way they're making decisions. It's affecting the way they're interacting with people. So it doesn't matter. All of us have had something that we have overcome, but for some, the trauma, it has been so extreme that it's become a filter over their mind. And so anytime when you think about a filter being over a person's mind, it clouds or distorts their ability to see things as they really are, right? Because what happens is you begin to see things based on the filter. Just think about it. When you put on sunshades, right? When you wear shades with the ability of being able to block the sun, right? But what happens is sometimes if you wear the shade at nighttime, right? If you wear the shade at nighttime, your ability to see things as they really are is going to be a little bit more tougher. And it's going to be tougher because now the environment that you're using the sunglasses, the filter, is in an inappropriate environment. So now everything that you see is based on the filter, that's the sunglasses that's on your eyes. And I feel like it's like that with how it is in our minds. I feel like sometimes because of our traumas and the things that we've gone through, our ability to see things as they truly are is not really it's not really, I would say, correct. So I want to deal with some of the filters, I would say, if I had to. And this is why I said the power of atmosphere and understanding how to control your mind, because you can't really dominate an atmosphere, right, on an external level, right, if you don't first learn how to do it internally, right? And so what made me think about atmospheres, because I started to look over my life and I started to realize that I've always been the type of person that I always realized the importance of making wherever I am right, fit the atmosphere that's going on in my mind. So if I'm walking around and I'm dealing with a lot of clutter and a lot of mess, 9 times out of 10, my mind was all over the place. I had a lot of things, and there was times I lived in complete clutter and a complete mess because of the relationships that I was in, because of the trauma that I endured. So I pretty much didn't focus on, when you're dealing with things internally, you don't really see things around you as they are. So you can have a bunch of clutter around you and you won't be able to notice it because your mind is so clouded on what's going on the inside of you. It's like you're always in your head and you're not really paying attention to what's going on the outside of you. But the more I started to get clear in my head, right, the more I started to get clear in my head, I realized that I began to see my atmosphere around me and started to realize, wait a minute, this atmosphere is reflecting something that I'm not. So this clutter and all of these things that are going on around me is reflecting what's going on in my mind. So now I haven't been able to notice it because I'm still trying to keep everything together inwardly. So when I started to do the work, the inward work, right, and started to allow God to allow the scriptures and allow my relationship with God to really help me deal with the internal aspects, right, of what was going on in my mind, right, then I began to notice that the more I increased my awareness of the mindset that I was in, the things that were going on around me, my perspective began to change because now the filter has come off. And that's kind of sort of how it is when the filters, could be, like I said, those filters are perspectives, right? And so when you begin to remove the filters off, you begin to see things as they are. So let's go ahead and get into this. So I want to talk about, let me give you this. In Romans 12, chapter 2, 12, in Romans 12, verse 2, it says, don't be conformed to the patterns of this world, right? But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. So in order for you to be able to dominate the atmosphere around you, you got to start internally, right? You got to start with dominating your thoughts. The Bible says, casting down every imagination and every high thing that exalts itself above the knowledge of God. There are always going to be things that is going to be going on in your mind, battling or coming against the knowledge of God, right? And the knowledge of God is because what he says about you, he said his thoughts about you are good and not evil, right? And so if his thoughts about you are good, then everything that's pertaining to you, the makeup of who you are in terms of how you look, in terms of whether you're short, tall, whether whether you're, skinny, a little bit heavier, whether your hands or arms, or whether you have all of your arms or none of your, or one of your arms, one of your legs or both of your legs. He said when he created you, his thoughts about you are good and not evil, right? And so you've got to start there, because in Proverbs it says the beginning of the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? And it talks about fools despising wisdom. So when you start at the beginning, right? When you start at the beginning and realize that it's more important for you to understand, because you can't love God with all of your heart and love others as you love yourself if you don't, one, have a perception, a true perception, should I say, of who God is, right? If you don't have a true perception of who God is, then how you're going to see yourself, you're not going to see yourself as a reflection and made in his image. What you're going to do is you're going to see yourself as your circumstance allow you, or you're going to see yourself the way other people, through the eyes of other people, which is another form of a filter. And what will happen is you will become used to pleasing everything and everybody around you, and you'll be susceptible to trying to make yourself fit into every area, everybody's circle, that you won't have time to really take the time to realize who you are. And that pretty much is what happened to me. I remember, growing up, is that I never wanted to feel out of place, right? And I didn't realize that me feeling out of place was God's way of letting me know that He has set me apart and that it will become the norm of my life. And becoming the norm doesn't mean that I became this awkward person where I didn't want to be around people. But what it did was help me to start identifying that yes, I was different from the people that I was around, and I was different because of the fact that I had a dip that he was shaping and molding me, right, to go in a different area. So there are some things that I would do that people around me may have not really had the interest or the desire to do, right? I was more concerned about not just about people pleasing, but I was also concerned about how to make the people around me enjoy being around me, right? So sometimes I would go overboard because I didn't want anybody to feel like, oh my God, I don't want them to not like me or not disappoint me. And what happened was I spent more time seeking approval of other people. And the problem with doing that, the problem with seeking the approval of other people is you never get to know yourself. You might know your name, you may know yourself in terms of the surface level of who you are. But when I say not really getting to know yourself, meaning not taking time to figure out the things that make you who you are, right? And so the atmosphere around me was always, I was always intimidated because if I felt like somebody had something that I didn't have, when I saw somebody that did have something that I didn't have, I started to look at the things that I didn't have as a deficit. And so I started to look at it as, oh, if I don't have this, that must mean that something is wrong, right? If I don't do things the way other people do, then that must mean that there's something wrong with me. And I realized that it's not necessarily that something is wrong with you. It just means that sometimes I didn't take the time to really discover who I was. So I was living life in the fast lane. I was just going with the flow. What everybody else was doing, I was just doing it to a point, right? And then it got to a point in my life that I started to realize that, wait a minute, I don't like to do things as other people like. I don't like to dress like other people. So I realized when I started to realize that when I started to identify things about myself, that I started to realize that, wait a minute, I kind of like dressing in multicolors. I kind of like walking around with colors that I didn't want to be I didn't want to walk around looking like everybody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. So when I started to take time to discover the things that I like, I was looked at as weird, the oddball. What's wrong with her? Why she look like that? Why she dressed like that? Why she wear her hair like that? Because I was setting an atmosphere for my own self to be comfortable in becoming the person that I'm still becoming today. And so I started to realize that as I started to transition through different things through different stages in my life, I started to be more comfortable with who I was becoming. And the more comfortable I began to be with who I was becoming, it got easier to get out of the lane of people pleasing. It got easy to say no to things that I probably would have struggled to say no to. It got easier for me to walk away from certain atmospheres and certain environments where it did not serve me. It got easier for me to look people in the eye. And when I say that I don't like something or I don't want something, it made it easier for me the more I began to realize that I was made in His image and in His likeness, right? So if I'm made in His image and His likeness and He is my creator, I've got to start with Him. I've got to start with how He views me, right? So that I can change the atmosphere in my mind, and then later on it starts to leak out to around me. So there are times I would walk into a room or in a place and I would literally feel like I would walk in the place as if I was the only one there, right? I would in my mind carry the thought that I was the only one that was there, and me doing that, some people might say, well, that, that's being conceited, or that's being, self-righteous, or that's being, boastful. But the Bible tells us to boast in the Lord. So I was excited at the fact that I was becoming somebody that I enjoy looking at in the mirror. I was becoming, and then it's crazy because as I started to look at even the intentions and things that happen in my life. I even looked at even down to the point of what my name actually means. And when I really got to the nitty gritty of what my name meant, it solidified even the more, right? It solidified even the more my reason to be able to know that I can walk in any room and command and change the atmosphere, right? And when I say change the atmosphere, I'm not talking about controlling people. I'm talking about being able to show up and make your presence known. Mean your personality is able to stand out amongst the people that are around you because of you being your authentic self, right? So let's go back here to so he says in Romans 12, don't be conformed to the world, right? Not being conformed to the world means don't shape your thinking, don't shape the things that you do based on what you see the world do. Don't conform, right? And part of being able to dominate the atmosphere is not being able to conform to the things that are around you. So what? You might have a bunch of people around you that doing a whole bunch of cussing and slandering. Doesn't mean that you have to do it, right? Doesn't mean that you have to participate in it, right? Because you're controlling your atmosphere. Because when you understand that the things that go on in your mind directly affect how you see things, right? You will start to be more careful about even the words that come out of your mouth. You'll be more careful about you'll be more intentional about casting down thoughts, right? And bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. So that means that if God tells me that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, then I'm not going to listen or allow myself to listen or conform to what the world may say. Oh, you this and you that. You don't look like this and you don't look like that. You too light, you too dark, you too this, you too that. I'm not conforming. I don't dress based on how the world dress. I dress myself and my body based on how I perceive myself. So if I want to wear a hat and I want to wear a wig, I'm going to wear it because I'm conforming to how I'm looking at myself on the inside, right? And there's some people, when it comes to wearing their natural hair, they may feel like, I want to conform to wearing natural hair. I don't want to wear protective hairstyle. I want to wear my own hair. I want to conform to how I see myself. And you have that right to do that, right? But it says here to be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? That means in order to renew your mind, you have to exchange what's already there with something that's going to be more beneficial in helping you see things from a different perspective. Now, this verse encourages believers to transform their lives by renewing their minds and moving away from the worldly influences and towards God's will. So that means that when you are putting more and you're being more intentional and making sure if I realize that his thoughts about me are good and not evil, that means I'm going to put more emphasis and more boldness. One thing I really like is funny. My daughter and her best friend, right? I used to always mess with them, right? About, the way, different things that they would do that I just thought was just so uniquely different. But when I started to look at them and how they carry themselves and their mindset and how they view themselves and the people around them, it don't matter what you think or what you say about them in regards to their hair, their body, or look, they're gonna do how we say we're gonna do us, right? They didn't care about what people thought or what their envision was about them. They were going to be who they are regardless, right? And I love that because being able to stand up boldly and say, this is who I am. This is who I've decided to become based on the internal. Now, it's one thing if you don't have a healthy mindset or a healthy perspective about yourself, then that needs to be addressed. But if you have a healthy perspective on how you see yourself, then don't allow other people to come in with their perspective and change that based on the way they want to see you. Because 9 times out of 10 in society, they want us to conform to what they consider to be beautiful, right? The society says society's form of beautiful is that you wear a size 5 or 6, and you basically, you have a hourglass shape. But the fact of the matter is, not everybody's body is shaped the same, nor was it intended for everybody's body to be shaped the same. And I'm not talking about an unhealthy way um, of carrying yourself, because there's some things that are going on in our body that you have to change because of your unhealthy eating habits and your stinking thinking, your environment. I'm not talking about that, but I'm saying some of us we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and we are all created in an image and a likeness of God. So we're not going to reflect each other. We're not going to have the same bodies. You might be a little bit bigger than me, I might be a little smaller than you, but that doesn't mean that because my body is smaller than you, or because your body is bigger than me, that it means that you have to walk around with this self-image of feeling like you have to look like me, right? You have to make sure the person that you clothe, right, every day, the physical expression of that is a direct impact of what goes on in your mind. So if you're dressing, and you might be the type of person, and you might feel like, because most people dress how they feel. If you feel incredible in your mind, then everything you do is going to be intentional, and you're going to reflect that in how you dress and how you show up in your attitude, right? But then there's some people who don't have a reflection of themselves in a very positive aspect, or they don't see themselves being made in the image and likeness of God. So that sometimes they show up, and it shows up in how they dress. It shows up in their demeanor. It shows up in their conversation, right? It shows up. So their atmosphere is dominated by thoughts that are oppressing or depressing them in a certain aspect, to where they can't see themselves outside of what's going on around them because of what's going on the inside of them. Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are noble, whatsoever thing is right, and whatsoever is pure, and whatsoever is lovely, and whatsoever is admirable, if there be anything worth praise, think about these things. Now, Paul was advising believers to focus their minds on virtuous and praiseworthy things, promoting a godly mindset, right? Jesus, when you think about him and how he walked on the earth, he didn't walk in the earth intimidated by what people thought about him. He didn't walk on the earth and talk about somebody being accused and blamed and ridiculed. He went through the worst ridicule, and yet he still sustained himself because of how he saw it himself. How do I know that? Because it says, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. That means he already knew that his reward and how he saw himself was a reflection on how he saw he is God, right? So in his mind, he had to make sure that he reflected, his thoughts had to reflect, because he was both God and man. He had to make sure that his thoughts reflected who he was. And so he didn't go into when he asked Peter, who do men say that I am? And Peter says, some say you're Elias, some say you this. And his question was, well, who do you say that I am? Right? He was confident in who he was, that when he asked Peter, who do you say that I am? And he was able to confirm to Peter that his perspective on how he saw him was not from his own mindset, but it came from his Father. So the confidence that he had was, you even knowing who I am is not based on anything that you know. Your perspective, it's something that my Father revealed it to you, who I was. When it says that we are that, when you talk about glory is God being revealed, right? Him being revealed. So when you think about you walking in the glory of God, which means you are reflecting God in your actions, you are reflecting his image in your conversations, you are reflecting his image in how you show up in the world. So if you get up and you show up and you're and you're always angry and you're always frustrated, then the environment that you're creating is an environment of frustration. You ever went to a place and you be like, "Whoa, the atmosphere is so thick, I can cut it with a knife." Well, a lot of the times that's exactly how it is. The atmosphere is so thick when we go and we're around certain things and people. I remember one time I was in the atmosphere and I literally felt like this person was literally throwing up on me. And it was exactly how it felt. It had, and I, and it wasn't until I started to change my own mindset that I started to feel that way, the effects of that. Where before I would, many years ago, I would just be like, it probably wouldn't have even affected me. But what happens is, and I was, and the person was talking, and I literally felt like they were vomiting. Like it literally felt like, and it was burn. It felt like poison burning my skin. And I thought to myself, like, wow. And so what I realized is the atmosphere, right? The atmosphere was creating an environment of death. Right? It was creating an environment that was literally causing poison. So what I realized is, I said, okay, all right. I realized that I have to learn, right? And I've learned this many years ago, how to dominate and under the atmosphere because of my understanding of the power of atmosphere. So what I realized, that I started to be more careful, right, in my words. I started to be more careful in my thought process, because I realized that if I see myself through what another person or a group of people see me as, then, and if I use that as my source of confirmation, then what's going to happen is I'm going to always be looking to them, the people, the theys in our life, the these, they, and those that we talk about in our lives, right? Because we all have the these, theys, and those, right? They said this, those people think this, they this, and it doesn't matter. What do you say about who you are? What do you say about the person that God created you to be? Because your ability to be able to define who you are based on the understanding of you're made in the image and the likeness of God, then what will happen is the atmosphere around you will begin to change, because you are now learning the power of atmosphere, because you are showing up, right? You are showing up as a different person. And so and you're showing up in your mind, right? When you show up in your mind as a different person, then the environment around you begins to change based on your ability to dominate the atmosphere. That's how powerful atmosphere. I'm telling you, I have been in atmosphere where I've been in a public place and the atmosphere is so thick because of the tension that's there, because of the employees, right? You ever been at work and all of a sudden you notice that everybody there just have this, they don't like each other, or you have a few people that don't like each other at the job, and all of a sudden everybody comes in with this, with this attitude, and everybody's fighting in the atmosphere to dominate the atmosphere. And it's crazy, because in the natural, it seems like everything is fine. But spiritually, you can feel the tension being cut in the air because of everybody's fight to dominate the atmosphere in their workplace or in their business or in their homes, right? So I started to realize that in order for me to dominate this mindset that was not serving me, right, I had to learn how to overcome the thoughts that were in my mind that were telling me things that was going against who God said I was. So the thing about Satan is he will send thoughts and impressions to your mind, right? And it is up, and when you take on those expressions and those thoughts and you begin to add words to them and actions to them, you give him a foothold to be able to use you to self-sabotage. And so when I stopped self-sabotaging, I started to realize that not only that we eat the fruit of our own words, right? We eat the fruit of our words, but our thinking is a reflection of thoughts in our mind, that is going in our mind, that we are pulling, are you pulling them down? Are you pulling down those? Because when you think about what a stronghold is a wall built up around a thought. So if your mind is constantly building up walls, because most of the time when we put up walls to protect us from outsiders. But what happens is sometimes the key is to build a fence, not a wall, right? And because when you build a fence, you can lock the fence. If you are giving people the ability to knock over your fence, then that would be a reason why some people build a wall, because they feel like their fence they didn't secure, right? Because most people think when you put up a fence, you're supposed to just leave it at that. No, even with the fence, you still have to maintain access, right? You still have to maintain some level of power over your atmosphere, so that way you're not allowing people to enter in, right, without them being allowed to. And I had talked about this, I think, on Sisterhood Check-in earlier this year, and I was talking about the different types of boundaries. And I was saying most people put up a smaller fence when they just want to keep animals out, when they want to just keep, dogs from pooping in their yard. So they may put up a little white picket fence, right? Some people might put up a wooden fence, right? Because or what they might consider a privacy fence, because they don't want everybody looking in their yard. They want to be able to come outside and sit on their porch or sit in their yard without somebody else invading their privacies, right? So that they might put up a privacy fence, right? And then you may have some people that put up a gate, because they don't want you, because both with a fence, with the privacy fence and a picket fence, there are some levels, and there are some types of fences where you can still kind of, if you wanted to violate that boundary, you can, right? But when it comes to a gate, right, when you put up a gate, that gate, you cannot access that gate without access, whether it's an access code or unless that person opens it up for you. So it's the same way with your mind. If you put up a privacy fence, which means you don't want everybody in your business, you don't want everybody having opinions about what you're doing and how you're doing it, then you have to put up a privacy fence, right? To make sure that people are not accessing areas of your life that you didn't give them access to. So you have to dominate that atmosphere when you feel like you're being violated, right? And then if you have a gate where you want to control the access of people getting in and out, right? Coming in and out of your life. If you want to put up a gate, that means only you have to be the one to give a person the code to be able to access your your atmosphere where you are, right? All of these different types of gates are there so that you can control the atmosphere where you are. And it's the same way in your mind. You have to be the one. You have to be intentional. Excuse me. You have to be intentional with the gates that you put in your mind, around your heart. This is why the Bible says, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flows the issues of life. If you don't learn how to put up boundaries so that you can control the atmosphere in your mind, it's definitely going to be difficult controlling the atmosphere around you. You ever see people, they're always trying to control everything around them? Most of the time when people are always trying to control everything around them, it's because they don't have any control on the inside. Because when you have control, real peace, right, on the inside of you, then what happens is you automatically dominate the atmosphere that you are in, because you realize that the power of being able to dominate the atmosphere doesn't reside in you trying to control things externally. It starts with the inside. Second Timothy chapter 1:7 says, for the Spirit of God does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. When you learn how to discipline your thoughts, right? Because your mind's going to have stuff going through it all day long based on what you got going on in the daytime. Your emotions will cause your thoughts to go all over the place. When you have to, and those thoughts can be anywhere ranging from fear, anxiety, frustrations. But when you learn how to control, right, and dominate your inward thoughts, right? And how do I do that, Nadira? I hear what you're saying, but how do I dominate? How do I control my thoughts? I'm glad you asked. Isaiah 26:3 says, you will keep me in perfect peace. You will keep in perfect peace he will keep us in perfect peace whose mind is steadfast and stayed on him because they trust in him. This verse highlights the peace that comes from keeping your mind focused on God and trusting him. So the way you dominate and the way you control those racing thoughts and things that are going through your head, sometimes you have to keep your mind on him so that he can still your mind, right? Because if your mind is not still and you feel like you're all over the place and you got rabbits jumping all over you, you're not going to be able to focus enough to be able to dominate what's going on the inside, and it will reflect on the outside. Romans 8:6 said, the mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the spirit is life and peace. So if you're trying to dominate your atmosphere, right, by doing all these external things, then what happens is you might get some sort of temporary peace, but it won't be lasting peace, right? Your mind has to be governed, right? And really in the King James, it says to be spiritually minded is life and peace. To be carnally minded is death. So if your mind is always thinking about carnal things, always thinking about yourself in terms of what's beneficial for you only, right? If you're not, because there's nothing wrong with, you have to, because in order to love your neighbor, you have to love yourself. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to be good to you first, right? But if your mind is always consumed, which is, notice the key word I use with consumed. If your mind is more consumed, I heard this man say something that was so powerful. And he said, in this world, he said, it doesn't matter what you do. If you do not have, he said contribution and I forgot the 3 C's. He said it was contribution and I can't exactly remember how he worded it, but the point that he was making is that everything in our life, we have to be able to contribute to other people. We're not going to be completely satisfied thinking about ourselves only. You can start with caring for yourself and being able to take care of yourself. And there are times where there is a point of solitude that you have to get in a place of solitude in order to do that. But if you spend your life surrounded by everything and all things concerning you only, then you have not really allowed yourself, God, to use you to contribute to the lives of other people. It is only when you serve and contribute to other people that you truly start to feel like you can get out of yourself. Because when you're always thinking about yourself and you're always thinking about you, and I'm like, again, I'm not saying taking care of your own emotions. I'm talking about when you are consumed with you and thoughts only concerning you, and you don't take the time to contribute and to contribute to another person's life. And after a while, I'm sorry to say, after a while, you're going to feel unsatisfied, because God created us, right, to please him and serve other people, right? We are supposed to please God and serve people. And the way you serve people is through your gift, which is why it's important for you to take the time to figure out who it is that God created you to be, so that you can contribute to the world what God placed on the inside of you, and you don't have to worry about being unfulfilled. The only time we're feeling unfulfilled is when we are selfish, right? And when you are and there's nothing wrong with being selfless sometimes, but when your life is consumed around you and you only, you're not contributing to the life of others. There's no exchange, because he said as long as the earth will remain, there will be seed time and harvest, right? Which means when you think about the spiritual implications of seed time and harvest, that means something is planted, it's watered, it grows, and it feeds, right? So if you put an apple seed in the ground, right, it's going to, when the rain comes, the rain is contributing to that seed, right? The rain is watering and continuing to contributing to the growth of that apple seed, right? And then what happens is that apple seed grows and develops, right, into a fruit that's edible for humans to consume. And when we consume it, it starts the process all over again, right? So if you are always consuming things that are only beneficial to you and you're not contributing to the lives of other people in whatever capacity God has anointed or gifted you in, then you will live your life. It's almost like what Solomon said when he said what it's like to live your life under the sun, right? And let me go to that. Hold on one second. Let me find it. Okay. So in Ecclesiastics, right? Let's see. Let me find it. Ecclesiastics 9, right? Verse 9, right? I'm going to read the King James version of it. It says, live joyfully with the wife whom you love live joyfully with the wife whom thou loveth all the days of thy life of thy vanity, which he has given thee under the sun. All the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, right? And in thy labor, which thou taketh under the sun. That wasn't the exact scripture I was looking for, but it actually contributes even the more to even my thought process about what it's like when it comes to contributing. In order to live joyfully, right, you have to be able to contribute to the lives of other people. You have to be able to take what God has given you and to be able to contribute it to the lives and bring transformation or bring joy or bring happiness or bring some sort of contentment to another person's life. That is when you will feel contentment. That's when you're able to dominate the thoughts that are in your own mind, the insecurities that you feel in your own mind. Then you will realize that you will begin to, no matter where you walk, you will begin to dominate the atmosphere that you're in, because you're able to dominate your thoughts inwardly. So we're going to take a quick break real quick. And I'm going to play these videos for y'all real quick. And then we come back. We're going to finish up. And we're going to continue with this discussion. If you have any questions or if you have any thoughts, put it in the comment. Let me know what you're thinking about this subject. Tell me how this subject is affecting you. And if you struggle with dominating your thoughts, with dominating your atmosphere, with dominating, if you're struggling with inward thoughts, I can give you some resources to kind of help you with that. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video, and then I'll be right back after this. Make sure you call up your girlfriends and tell them Sisterhood Check-In is on the air. I'll see you after this.
Help me to trust him again with my heart and not be scared, looking over my shoulder when it comes to his actions because I felt betrayed by him. Help me to trust his good intentions towards me.
May not be physically with you.
They're in your church.
But I am sitting next to you.
Different face.
Different name.
Same story, though, that goes like this.
I've done some terrible things in my life.
Some of them I chose to do.
And I own these choices.
But others, I just feel like I was swept up in a series
of circumstances that didn't involve my will.
They just sort of happened to me.
I've become the culmination of those choices and circumstances.
So I guess I just need to say it.
I really
need some help.
Hi, I'm Nadira, author, life and business coach, and founder of the Sisterhood Checkin podcast. I help women take their life experiences and turn them into life lessons. Book a call with me at bit.ly/coaching with Nadira. I look forward to helping you get to the other side of victory. Have a wonderful day. All right, and we are back. I am back with today's topic on how to dominate the atmosphere, the power of atmosphere, and understanding how to control your mind. So I know a lot of you that have been watching might be asking, well, why? Why is it so important? Why the concern about what I think? Why the concern about me dominating what's going on inside of me? Why do you care? What does it even matter? It doesn't have anything to do with you. Let me tell you why it matters. Because it directly influences your mental, your emotional, and physical well-being. I'm going to say that again. Why do I care about you understanding the power of atmosphere and understanding the importance of dominating your inward thoughts? Is because it directly influences your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. When it comes to when you talk about how does it affect your mental and emotional health, is because if you are stressed, if you are always in an environment where you're constantly stressed and you're filled with anxiety, then it's going to affect the people that are around you. It's going to affect you, and it's going to affect the people that are around you. So it's important that you minimize the stressors and anxiety triggers and create a sense of calm and stability by focusing your inward thoughts on what God says, focusing your thoughts on him and how he sees you, how he sees the circumstance, so that you can take the filter off and have a different perspective and be able to look at it the way he does, so that you can control your stress. You can reduce your stress, because if you know the promises of God are yes and amen, then when you start to feel overwhelmed because things are not going towards the direction that you want, it will help with reducing your stress triggers, right? It also enhances your mood, because how many of you know if you're struggling inwardly, you're not always in the best mood, right? And you're not everything around you, you're just jumpy and you're just angry, everything is triggering you. So when you begin to control your inward thoughts, right, and the way you do that is you exchange your thoughts that you already have and struggling with God's word and how he sees you. Because if you're made in the image and his likeness, you're not going to function at your best if you're not functioning the way he designed you to function. So one of the ways, how can I improve environments that I'm stressed in or that I'm feeling anxiety? Well, here's one way in how you can prove it. You can substitute the atmosphere that you're in with a supportive atmosphere, meaning that so that it can help, if you feel like, I'm in an environment and I can't really change, everything that's going on around me. But when you begin to allow to exchange your thoughts, then you will start to become clear in areas where you might have felt clouded before. So it'll help you when you get better at controlling your thoughts, then what happens is it'll help you to maintain focus and mental clarity, and it'll reduce cognitive overload. Why is it important for me? Number two, why is it important for me, Nadira, why are you concerned and why should I be concerned about controlling my mind and understanding the power of atmospheres? Because it affects your physical health. If you are stressed and you are overwhelmed and you're in anxiety and you're full of anxiety, it's going to affect, you're going to take years off your life. The Bible says, how can you cannot add 1 cubit to your life by worrying. So when he tells us to take no thought for tomorrow, doesn't mean don't plan for it, but it means don't overly concern yourself about stuff that ain't even happened yet. You worried about what the capability of what could happen, and those thoughts are very real and could be very possible. But the Bible tells us, who can add to himself 1 cubit to his height? You can't change anything by worrying about it, right? Worrying about it is not going to change the circumstance, right? And so what will happen is stress will cause your body to start breaking down, right? So one of the ways that you can minimize, right, that is to create a safe living space and to make sure that you're surrounding your thoughts, right, with the word of God. What does God say about me? He said his thoughts about me are good and not evil. If you know and understand that I'm made in his image and in his likeness, that means that I have capabilities. I have the ability to create witty inventions. I have the ability to do things because of the person, the image and likeness that I'm made in. It also affects your productivity and your performance, right? You might be a manager, you might be in a position where people depend on you. Well, if you don't understand how to control your mind and understand how important it is for you to dominate the atmosphere and manage, and understand the power of atmosphere, then what happens is you'll create an environment where your workers or people that are under you are going to always be stressed, right? And then the things that you do, you won't do them at your best because your productivity will be low because you are so overwhelmed with what's going on in your mind. So one of the ways that you can fix that is make sure that you're in an environment where you can actually think, right? And you can actually think about, what ways, if you're a manager or if you feel like if you're an entrepreneur and you might be in a house with a whole bunch of people and you might feel overwhelmed, and because of all of these thoughts going through your head and it's affecting your production because you don't have the time. Your kids are running around screaming, your husband is walking around or your wife is walking around pulling on you all the time, your family's pulling on you, and you might feel like, oh my God, I feel like I can't get anything done. Then what you have to do is you have to stop and you have to replace those thoughts, right, that say that you can't do it because of all of these things going around. You have to find scriptures, right, that support and say, okay, you know what, I can do this, right? And you have to not only say it, but you have to convince yourself, because it's not really belief until you're convinced in your heart, right? When you are convinced in your heart that though this may be difficult, that I am determined to create an environment where I can function. I tell my son and my children that are entrepreneurs all the time, and I tell them the importance of protecting your mental headspace. Because if you are in a creative mode and you are an entrepreneur, it is your responsibility to create. So if you're not able to dominate your atmosphere, if you're not able to create a space, then that's going to affect your productivity, right? You're not going to get things done at the best that it should be done because you're going to be overwhelmed with all the stuff going on in your mind. And it's also going to affect your relationships and your social interactions. You can tell when a person is having struggles with with dominating thoughts or being able to control their mind, because they can't even be around people without feeling overwhelmed, right? So their atmosphere is full of intimidation and fear and anxiety, right? And so one of the ways that you can dominate the atmosphere is start to minimize the influences around you, the negativity, and start to cultivate more positive relationships. Be around people that that are able to speak life into you. Be around people that are affirming who you already believe that you are, right? And then if you believe that you're a failure, and then what's going to happen is you're going to attract people that see you as a failure. And then what's going to happen is you're going to reflect the thoughts of your, not only what's going on in your head, but of the thoughts of everybody around you. So one of the ways that you can fix that is put yourself in environments where people are challenging you. Put yourself in environments where people are able to see you the way God sees you and help you to change your perspective and how you see yourself, so that way you can cultivate positive environments and environments that enforce who God created you to be, versus environments that are more prone to confirm the negativity that you feel in your heart. It also affects your spiritual well-being, right? Because if you struggle, if you have these inner thoughts going on the inside of you that you're struggling with, you don't understand how to control your mind, it's going to cause you to doubt God, right? It's going to cause you to struggle with what God says about you. When he say things like, my thoughts about you are good and not evil, then what happens is you will start to see that as a problem, and it'll be hard for you to be fully convinced. So it will affect your spiritual well-being, and you'll be operating and walking in doubt more so than you are in faith. So how do you combat that? Like I said, you put yourself in environments with other people, right? You put yourself in environments where people are affirming the thoughts, who you are, so that you can see yourself outside of the negative thoughts that are always combating your mind. So those are just some things, but I just wanted to just say in conclusion that dominating your atmosphere is essential for creating a life that is balanced, fulfilling, and healthy. And it empowers you to take control of the factors that are influencing your well-being, your productivity, your relationships, and your spiritual well-being. By consciously shaping your environment, you can optimize your overall quality of life. Some of you, your quality of life is not where it should be because of your atmosphere. So when you consciously shape your environment, you can optimize your overall quality of life and positively affect those around you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you want to watch the replay, it will be on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you need one-on-one coaching in the areas of your mind, please do not hesitate to go to my website and book a session with me at coachingwithnadira.com. If you want to know the latest updates on what products and services that I have that can help you, you can always go to bit.ly/Coach Me Nadira A. And I'm going to put that in here for those of you that are interested. If you want to know updates, I thought I put this in here. You can always go to Coach Me Nadira A. If you want to learn more and stay in the loop and updates on whatever products and services that I have, I'm going to be reopening the Wisdom Clinic. So with the Wisdom Clinic, I'm going to be unlocking biblical principles in areas of faith, in areas of, so many different things, in areas of your finances, in areas of so many different things. So for those of you that are interested and want to join the Unlocking Biblical Principles, make sure you go to the bit.ly/Coach Me Nadira in order to find more. If you want to know if you would like to book a session with me, or would like to know what products and services I have that will help you, you can always go to coachingwithnadira.com, and I'll put that in here also, coachingwithnadira.com. I think I got that in there right. Let's see if it's right. coachingwithnadira.com. So yes, if you want to book a session with me, you can always go right there to coachingwithnadira.com, and I'll be more than happy to help you on your journey to being able to be the person or become the person that God has ordained you to be. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Again, you can go to bit.ly. If you're on Instagram, the link is in the bio. If you are watching on Facebook and YouTube, it will also be in the description and in the bio, the coaching with Nadira. So all of my links are available on all of the platforms if you're interested. It was such a pleasure to serve you tonight here on Sisterhood Checkin. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much for watching and have an amazing evening.